boys of upper middle and upper class, especially white boys, are being trained to be in control verbally, emotionally, to be in offices, to make decisions that control people's lives without using physical violence. Working class and poor white boys are being trained to be in jobs that often are in controlling communities of color, and there aren't jobs for the poorest in our society because our corporations have moved jobs overseas. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of very poor paying service jobs. And so the Act Like a Man box and the racial stratification is preparation for people's roles in society.
Does it matter with regard to the material that you talk about in men's work that what class or what race you are with regard to domination and the consequences to battery and violence? Today's paper had a story which said that 1/3 of all women are either battered or raped or violated in their lifetime.
Well, and we can see in a society in which most men don't feel like they're going to get to the top, that they feel like that they've been mistreated or they haven't gotten what they're entitled to in some way. What's one of the worst things you can call a boy at school? Girl, mama's boy, pussy, bitch. Those words that say that women, girls, don't deserve respect, that they're inferior, that if you're angry or confused, one of the legitimate targets that boys are taught is you can turn that towards women. And so this provides an outlet, a relief for men. I may not be as successful as I want to be, but at least I'm not a girl. Or if, in terms of the homophobia that we mentioned earlier, at least I'm not gay. There's somebody, or if I'm white, at least I'm not a person of color.
So homophobia is this fear that you will be suspected of being girly or sissy, or that you really are same-sex oriented?
Or that you're out of the box, that you're not manly enough, you're not strong enough, you're not successful enough. And so the message is to take whatever fear you have about the box, about not being adequate in the box, and finding somebody to pass on your pain and anger and confusion to.
So it's out of the fear that you become furious, that you will be seen as out of the box, punished for it, that results in men taking their fury out as a manifestation of their fear on those who are they've been trained to think of as inferior.
Right, or who are vulnerable socially.
And vulnerable.
Now, the thing that often gets confused in people's mind is that a lot of men are legitimately angry at their circumstances. You know, we are the training of the box itself is violence that's done against us. A lot of boys are hit, sexually assaulted. A lot of us don't have educational opportunities, don't have good jobs. That's legitimate anger. The problem is that the anger gets connected to violence, and we turn around to the people around us, our friends, our family, and take it out on them, rather than thinking about, you know, how do we organize, how do we make change, how do we change the system.
I want to talk about the victims who victimize, but I want to tell people how to get a hold of you.
Okay.
Paul Kivel, I'd like to find your telephone number and access information on the monitor, and then I'd like to tell the folks that Paul will be at the NOMAS conference this summer in Colorado Springs, and we'll be making a presentation, a workshop or otherwise, at the 25th anniversary conference on men and masculinity, to be held the August 10th through 13th. And I'd love to see that on the screen as well. Your phone number is there. And NOMAS is the National Organization for Men Against Sexism, and their website is www.nomas, no more, sexism, racism, and homophobia, and it's nomas.org. And the conference information is the 25th anniversary of the conference Men and Masculinity, to be held in Colorado Springs, and that will be on the screen, and we needn't wait for it. We'll just go, there it is now, 25 Years of Changing Men, History, Progress, and Opportunities. We'll be talking about opportunities August 10th through 13th, 2000 in Colorado Springs, and we'll have some access information further, M&M 25, Post Office Box 455, Louisville, Colorado, and the phone number 303-666-7043. I'm sorry to take a break in our conversation to put that on, but my sense is that people will want to talk to you some more, will want to read your books, and know some of the things you do. Now, I got to tell you, I use your books in my class, especially the Uprooting Racism book, which teaches white people how they can be allies to people of color. on the issue of racism. And I know you make a distinction between being non-racist and being anti-racist.
Right.
And I wonder if we could shift gears. We have so much to talk about that I want to at least get some of the core ideas that are unique in your thinking and really have introduced to everybody. So can you make that
let me start out by, we're talking about men's issues, so let's start there. You know, a lot of us as men want to say that we don't hurt women. I don't hit my kids, I don't hit my partner, therefore I'm a good man. But we know that 4 or 5 million women a year are beaten by their partners.
Someone's doing it.
We know 1 million women a year are being raped and sexually assaulted. So it's not enough for me to say my hands are clean, you know, because there's a system of violence against women going on around me, and it affects me, it affects my children, it affects the women around me. So unless I'm actively involved in challenging that, then I'm part of the problem. I'm part of the passivity, you know, I'm getting benefits from that, and I'm not doing anything to challenge the injustice of that. Racism works the same way. You know, a lot of us say, well, I treat everybody okay. I'm colorblind. Right. I don't see color.
We both smirk at that.
Right. I'm personally not racist, and that's great. I mean, that's something that's an achievement.
When that's true, it's an achievement.
Right.
As opposed to someone being in denial and being unaware.
We know, like for instance, last year there were over 2 million incidents of housing discrimination. We know there's rampant job discrimination. The schools are vastly unequally funded between the children of color and white children.
Yes.
So that there's racial injustice happening around us. And it's not enough for me to say, my hands are clean, I'm a good person, because I'm living in a system in which I have a moral responsibility to intervene and act up and to reach out when there's injustice happening.
Are you making an additional distinction between personal bigotry and racism and institutional racism, which is not in a person's attitude towards another, which we think of as prejudice, or the end result of prejudice could be violence, but the violence committed by a society against people by denying them opportunities, something which is identified by some people as institutional racism? Right.
That's a good distinction. And very often as individual white people we want to say, I don't commit acts of interpersonal racism. I don't discriminate against anybody.
That's an important distinction.
But there are institutional patterns in the criminal justice system, in the job market, in the housing market. And those are much bigger than individual acts. And we have a responsibility for addressing those. And that's the difference between non-racist, which implies a neutral stance where I'm not part of this system, or anti-racist, which means I'm actively working to bring about social justice.
Just as the phrase "act like a man" box was intriguing to me, you have another concept, which is what escapes me now, allies, being allies to people of color, being allies to women. And how does that work with what you were just saying?
It comes from looking historically at how has change occurred in this country. How did we eliminate slavery? How did women get the right to vote? Well, let's take with women to start out with. Women organized, they agitated, they educated, and there were men who were their allies, who worked with them. Now we can think of Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, just a whole range of men who worked with women so that women could get the right to vote. They were allies to women. Historically, we've had men, always had men who have worked as allies to women. Again, through the abolition period, we had white people working to end slavery. It's really important, if we're going to make a difference in our society, if we're going to come together as a community to address these pressing social issues, that we need to be allies to each other. As a man, I need to be out there working with women to end violence against women. And that I have a particularly strong role because the violence is being committed by men. So I have a responsibility to reach out to other men. I can say I don't hit my partner, but I may look around and I may have a brother or a co-worker who's being abusive, or a friend, or down the street my neighbor is beating his partner or something, and I have a responsibility to reach out to that person. In fact, for the motto of the Oakland Men's Project was men's work to stop male violence. Because men are the perpetrators, and we have a responsibility to reach out to each other.
You know Hamish Sinclair, who was on our program recently and talked about collusion